Clash Artifacts of Chaos made me realize just how long it's been since I've gone into a game blind and enjoyed it so much. If you missed what little marketing it received and never played the prior Zeno Clash games, Artifacts of Chaos is a somewhat old-school third-person action adventure, which mixes tactical fighting with RPG elements and a dice-based board game that can influence the outcome of battles. After a confusing tutorial-like dream sequence, protagonist Pseudo, the hermit to others, awakens in his camp to the sound of distant music. He witnesses an elderly man fall in ritual battle, defeats the murderous challenger, and reluctantly becomes the guardian of a small owl-like creature everyone refers to as the Boy. Coming in with little knowledge of the IP, Artifacts of Chaos is a mix of intriguing and weird. How did the world of Xenozoic, a chaotic clash of biomes, crumbling ruins, grotesque plants, and bizarre sentient creatures come to be? What is the explanation for Pseudo's tree-like nighttime form? What is the origin of the combat ritual that precedes battle between sentient foes? And why does the merciless ruler of the region want the Boy? What I will say is that it doesn't take long before Pseudo reckons the best option to keep himself and the Boy safe is to gear up and go after the source of their troubles. Although the narrative pacing can drag at times, I found the story an unexpected highlight, even if the premise and several story beats are far from novel. The stoic Pseudo, always keen to avoid trouble yet confident of his abilities, makes for a compelling lead, while the curious and excitable Boy provides the perfect foil. There's no shortage of in-game banter between Pseudo and the Boy, interspersed with more fleshed-out cutscenes, all of which do a great job of delving into their personal beliefs, the nature of their enemy, and the history and customs of Xenozoic. As fights very rarely end with death, repeat encounters with major villains and their bounty hunter lackeys were equally enjoyable, as, despite their appearance, they're driven by all-too-human vices that the wizened Pseudo has no time for. Now, I found Clash Artifacts of Chaos tapped into my nostalgia for third-person action games from the early to mid-2000s. Think Giants, Citizen Kabuto, Oni, Beyond Good and Evil, Fable, or maybe even Psychonauts. Not necessarily games in the same genre, but all games that tried to do a bit of everything mechanically, and differentiated themselves with an unusual setting or premise. Just like those games, Artifacts of Chaos has plenty of interesting and often compelling ideas, though the experience is uneven. Starting with the good, the combat is surprisingly technical and rewards skill. There are a dozen fighting styles to pick from, think lunging range strikes, close-quarter flurries, and uninterruptible double-handed heavy blows. These basic attacks all have additional variants you can trigger with a directional input after a dodge, usually with variants to get you in close or create some distance. Supplementing these fighting styles are 10 more situational special attacks, like a sweeping kick that can hit multiple foes, an uppercut that counters aerial foes or those leaping at you, a flurry of stunning punches with a long charge-up time, and a teleport dash that can get you both into and out of trouble. With the ability to cycle between two fighting styles on the fly and assign 3 specials, you'll quickly realize Artifacts of Chaos is no button masher. You're encouraged to master move cancelling, chaining basic attacks or specials at the point of impact, or cancelling into a dodge right after a strike to avoid damage, and then resume your combo. Fight skillfully, and you'll build up a meter that allows you to go into first-person view, presumably a throwback to Zeno Clash, and if you can land a succession of blows on your target, you'll trigger a high damage finisher. Great for quickly removing a tough opponent from a group, or wrapping up a desperate boss fight. Irrespective of whether you're going up against wild animals, groups of sentient bounty hunters, or bosses, finding a gap is rarely an easy task as enemies hit hard, fast, and punish repetition. Baiting enemies into hitting one another is a great option, but even cautious play is complicated. You'll need to avoid continuous dodging and wild swings to maintain a stamina reserve, which provides a powerful automatic guard that halves incoming damage. Thankfully, should you fall, Pseudo's nighttime form offers a second chance to defeat a tough foe, but fall again after dark, and it's back to the last campsite checkpoint. Reaction times and skill are obviously important, and, initially, the steep challenge in Artifacts of Chaos had me worried about the lack of difficulty settings. Thankfully, there are several mechanics to aid you in the toughest encounters, if you're willing to explore and grind a bit. Most important are the RPG elements that include a leveling system to boost 4 attributes, burning figurines you find throughout the world to directly enhance fighting styles and special attacks, finding crafting materials to trade for attribute-enhancing gear, powerful but limited durability melee weapons, and ritual artifacts, and finally collecting animals and plants to brew into restorative potions. Equally important, to both the narrative and gameplay, is the ritual board game that sentient creatures challenge one another to before combat. Each side picks an artifact that benefits them, such as summoning an ally, getting the first blow, or poisoning their opponent, and then the dice are rolled. At this point, players take turns placing checks on the board to modify dice values, usually by flipping, reducing, or preserving values in a quadrant, zone, or along a line. It's a simple yet engaging design, but also tough until you can invest in some new dice and checks. With a half dozen mechanics to keep you engaged, Clash Artifacts of Chaos offers up an impressively large world to explore, even if its hub-and-spoke design is more linear than it appears. Xenozoic's diverse regions are perhaps best described as a series of entangled branches that crisscross each other, with small offshoots all over the place hiding secrets. With mostly natural environments and abundant and visible walls, the game could definitely do with a better map or signposting, and it felt intimidating at first when I constantly encountered dead ends or doors locked from the other side. However, you soon settle into a predictable rhythm of pushing forward to the next campsite, exploring side paths for materials before tackling bounty hunter roadblocks, and opening shortcuts back. At night, you can explore new and old areas for unique armor pieces, or tackle tougher foes to clear a path forward during daytime exploration. The structure does have its downsides though. Although you could attempt the final boss rush early on, you're encouraged to find 4 great artifacts, each located in a new region that'll take you to a corner of the map, while revealing more about Pseudo, the boy, and the world. It's a task that takes up the bulk of your playtime, and that repetitive cycle, explore by day, battle bounty hunters, open shortcuts, explore again by night, begins to feel drawn out and poorly paced relative to the exciting opening sequence and the finale. On the upside, I never grew tired of seeing new sights, and the world feels interconnected with most locations visible from one another. You see, Artifacts of Chaos is one of the most visually unique games, with striking designs for flora and fauna, and a crosshatch rendering technique that combines hard lines with vibrant and contrasting colours. Every location and encounter is enhanced further thanks to a dominant, eclectic soundtrack, just as diverse as the cast and environments. Thumping tribal beats were always a highlight, but you've also got punchy rock tracks for battle, haunting vocals and choir-like tracks, upbeat exploration tracks, and moody ambience for nighttime excursions. Sure, hitboxes are sometimes iffy, and there's no shortage of janky-looking combat finishes and climbing animations, but that all did little to detract from the cohesively incohesive beauty of Xenozoic. Wrapping up, Clash Artifacts of Chaos is what I'd consider a near-perfect example of what I want to see from so-called AA developers. It's built on a budget, yet the core mechanics are engaging, the story and cast are compelling, and the unique visual style ensures the world feels like nothing else. If you're a long-time fan of action-adventure games looking for something new, Clash Artifacts of Chaos may settle into a predictable rhythm at times, but you never know what weird and wonderful sights you'll discover, or what hideous creature you might encounter next. On the other hand, younger, or maybe just newer gamers, might find some gameplay mechanics, the world structure, and the janky elements leave it feeling a little too dated. If you've got this far, please consider giving the video a like and maybe subscribing to our channel as it helps us grow.